Hi everyone, it's Lynn Dion from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to be using a really pretty Poinsettia Hero Arts color layering stencil. I'll be using some of the rub-ons, and then I want to show you a little bit different of a vellum overlay technique. I thought these would be fun for a little bit of Christmas in July. And also I do want to mention that kind of a part 2 to this video will be a Hero Arts layering stencil set with snowflakes. So keep an eye out for that. You may want to hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on that video. Let's get started by creating our 2 card bases. I've got some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock, and this measures 4 1/4 by 11 inches, and I'm scoring it at 5 1/2 inches. So we'll have 2 A2 size top folding cards. Now I want to mask off the top portion of the card, so I've placed this on my Wendy Vicki Make Art station, and I'm going to take some Post-it labeling and cover-up tape just to cover that temporarily while we do our stenciling. I just want to protect that back section of the card. Let's take a look at these beautiful color layering stencils. These are from Hero Arts, and this set has 4 layering stencils. And on the back of the packaging, it shows you exactly what those stencils will do. And again, that's the color layering Poinsettia stencil set. And these are labeled 1 through 4, so you know exactly which ones you're working with. And they do have those little registration marks in the 4 corners if you wanted to line it up that way. I'm going to use the grid on my Make Art station to line this up. So you do want to make sure you position it the same each time. And then for inking this up, I'm going to use my Vicki Boutin color wheels. I think it'll be easier to show you the colors I'm using by using these color wheels. And I've got the warm tones, and the one with the blues and greens is the cool tones. And I love that there are these little pie shapes. This is a pigment ink, so it is an embossable ink if you wanted to. And these little pie shapes just slide right out of that color wheel. And then what I'm going to do is take a blending brush and start blending out the color. So I started with that hot pink color. And I've got stencil number 1 lined up on my Make Art station. And then I'm going to fill in all of this section number 1 or stencil number 1 with that bright pink. So I'm just kind of patting it on. I don't want to rub too hard because it is a wet ink and I don't want to push it in underneath the stencil. So I'm just kind of patting it on, and then I'm going back to the brush just to blend that out a little bit better. Now you could certainly use any ink pads that you prefer, so you don't feel like you have to have this triangular shaped ink pad. But it does help when you want to get down into some of those areas a little bit tighter, but you could always use a blending brush for that as well. So that was stencil number 1. Let's grab stencil number 2. But before we do that, we'll give this a quick heat set. I did heat set in between each layer of color just because, again, that ink is quite wet. So I didn't want to smudge anything. So I'm going to line this back up on the grids on my Make Art station just to make sure it's positioned the exact same way. And then let's grab the next darker pink. So that darker pink will be on stencil number 2. And I'm just going to, again, kind of pat that on all around all these areas. And then I'm going to just use that blending brush to blend it out. Now for the second card we're going to do, I'm going to show you we can do a little bit of ink blending on these layers. But for this one, I just went straight onto the stencil with the color that I was using. So again, in this case, the hot pink. Now for stencil number 3, we're going to switch over to the greens. And I am going to use some kind of turquoise greens for this one. So let's go to that color wheel. These are the cool colors. And we're going to use those 2 turquoise greens. I'll start with that lighter one. And then later on, we're going to use those other 2 greens, the brighter greens, for the second card. So let's go ahead and pat on this really pretty turquoise color. It's kind of a minty color, and it's going to look so pretty with the pinks. So let's quickly finish patting on that color. And again, you can see I'm not being really fussy. This goes very quickly. Now, if you were just adding your ink with a blender, you could do that. I found that this went a little bit faster by just applying the ink with the ink pad directly and then blending it out. It was a lot faster, and I didn't have to worry too much about getting any excess ink on there because I was just using that patting motion. So now we have that, and again, you can always stop at any point on these. Let's quickly heat set that, and we'll go to the last stencil, number 4. Just lining that up on those grid lines again. And then going back to the color wheel, let's grab that darker turquoise green, and we'll go ahead and pat that color on. So you can see how quick and easy this is to do. If you're mass producing cards, these are great. These are fun. You could do one color at a time and set them aside, let them dry overnight, and come back and do your second layer and so on. Just to break it down a little bit, I just found it really relaxing and fun to do these. I just think it was easy. And if you're not a person who really likes to color with your markers or your Copic markers, this is a great way to do a really pretty card, and it looks special. It looks like you spent forever on it, and it's really quite simple. So let's remove this from the Make Art Station. We can remove that Post-it tape, and look how pretty this is. So let's go ahead and take that kind of darker yellow from the color wheel. These again are the warm colors, and go ahead and pat that on. We'll be using the orange and the red as well on this one. Now what I want to show you here is I'm going to pat on this color, and then we'll blend that out. So this is stencil number 1, and while this stencil is still down, I'm going to grab that orange tone, and with that little pointy edge, and that's where this kind of comes in handy because I can really target where I want to place that ink. I'm going to place it along the side of each of those petals, and then I'm just going to kind of blend it in a little bit. Just for a little bit of shadowing. You certainly don't have to do this, but I thought it added a little bit more interest. And I'm going to do that same thing for all the rest of the little flowers. On some of them, I'll just add a little bit more in the center and then pull it out towards the tips of those petals. Just again, to give it a little bit of a shadow. Now we can go ahead and blend that out. And I am cleaning off the blending brush a little bit because I don't want to blend too much of that darker color into the lighter color. So I'm just kind of brushing off any of that excess onto a paper towel. And then you can kind of see that shadowing, and I think that's really interesting. It makes it a little bit more realistic, I guess. And then for the last color on the flowers, I'm going to go to that bright red. So for these cards, we are going to create a vellum overlay. And that is going to be so that it will mute out all of these colors that we're using now. It will be behind the vellum, and then we're going to add some rub-ons over top. The sentiments will be some rub-ons. So again, everything is really easy to do and really easy to use, and absolutely no coloring. So for those of you who don't love to color, this is a great little project. And you could just use a portion of these stencils to do some tags if you wanted to, or do a whole background and just cut it into sections for your tags. So once that was done, I'm going to go to the greens, and again we're going to use those brighter greens. So let's start with that lighter one. And do keep in mind that all the products I'm using today are listed and linked down below, and also on my blog. And if something is not available, I will try to list for you something similar, so you can check those links down below. So let's do another quick blend. And then let's go ahead and add that last color. We are going to add that darker green, and you can already see how different this one looks from the pink and the turquoise greens. It's just a totally different look. So have some fun changing up the colors for these. Really, you could just do a whole set of these for someone. It would make a really great gift if you made a whole set of cards for someone and put them in a nice little gift box or tied them with a ribbon and add a pen and some postage. I like to give that as a gift. I think it's fun. Put it in a little basket with a nice pen and some postage and the envelopes, and it really is a cute little set. So let's go ahead and finish up this color. And I really like the kind of orangey red combination with these brighter greens. And look how pretty that is. I just love that. And then I'm going to remove that posted tape again. And let's set that aside to dry, or you can heat set that. So we have both of our panels. You could certainly stop right here and just add a sentiment. But I wanted to show you a really nice little vellum technique. Vellum is sometimes difficult to use because it's hard to hide the adhesive. And I know in past videos I've shown you some other ways to do it. But for this one, I thought I would show you that if you take and cut your vellum to 4 1/4 by 11 inches and score it or fold it at 5 1/2 inches, this will overlay your entire card, and you can hide the adhesive between the two layers. I did notice I had a little bit of ink there, a little smudge, so I'm using my sand eraser, my Tombow Mono sand eraser, and I just went ahead and removed that. So this is going to lay right over the top, and you can see how it will really soften those colors. So along the fold line up on the front of the card, I'm going to add a 1/8 inch strip of double-sided tape. And I'll do that for both of these. And then I can go ahead and remove the backing. Now we're going to hide this tape under some washi tape. So I'm placing the tape on the front. You could always place this tape on the back side of the card and not worry about it at all. It'll still hold your vellum in place nicely. But I am going to add some washi tape, so we'll hide that tape completely underneath the washi. Let's go ahead and remove the backing on that tape. I'm just using my Cricut weeding tool to remove that. And then you just want to line it up right along that score line and fold that vellum right over top, and you'll have a really pretty vellum overlay. Let's add that washi tape. I've got one that kind of looks like, it's like sparkly. It's a white sparkle, reminded me kind of a snowflake look. And then I've got the other one in that pretty bright green. These both have a really nice sparkle to them. So let's go ahead and add that. We're adding it on the top of the vellum, right over top, and then that will hide that strip of double-sided tape that's underneath. So you can see that finishes it off. You could always add a ribbon here. That works really well also. So now with the Hero transfers, these are just rub-on transfers from Hero Arts. And these are really fun and again really easy to use. And these are called the Joyful Christmas Messages, and look at all the different combinations you have. So you can kind of pick and choose the lettering, there's some banners, there's just some black lettering, and there's some little embellishments in here as well, some little stars. And so we're going to grab that Warm Wishes. It's that really pretty teal color that we used in the background. So all I want to do is just cut out the sections that I want, and then I will just, there's a little popsicle stick that comes with this set, so you can use that to rub these down. I did use that for the larger sentiment, and then for the smaller one I use my stylus. So let's go ahead and lay this now. I'm laying this right on the vellum. And I'm going to use that little popsicle stick and rub that down. You might have a rub-on tool that you prefer. But I'm just going to use this since it was included in the set. And you want to make sure you rub that down well. And then what you can do is just lift it gently just to make sure you got it all. It looked like here I didn't quite get it all, so I'm just going to go back and rub that out a little bit more. And then we can just lift that film off the top. And you do get quite a few sentiments in that set, so you could do quite a few cards with that set of transfers. So let's go ahead and lift that. I'm still just checking as I'm going. I don't want to pull up too quickly. Just want to make sure I have everything attached. And then let's go ahead and add the little banner that says wishes. And here's where I did switch over to the stylus tool. I just thought it would get more of that detail. And this little stylus has a couple of different ends on it. A little ball end on each side. One is a little larger than the other. I use this a lot to sculpt my flowers and paper projects that I'm working on. But today I thought I would use it for this. And you can see how cute that is on the vellum paper. So now for this one, again, you have these really pretty oranges, reds, and greens. I'm going to stick to the greens, and this will say Happy Holidays. So I'll go ahead and attach those the exact same way. But you could certainly mix the green with some red in that sentiment, so that would be pretty too. So let's add some enamel dots. These are both from Hero Arts. And for this one, I'm going to use the Sunset enamel dots. And that has a combination of kind of oranges and yellows. And then I've got the clear ones as well. So let's take this kind of orangey red tone. I'll add a few around the sentiment just to finish this off. I just thought it gave it a really pretty look. And again, this is the sentiment, and these are getting attached to the vellum overlay. So when you lift up that flap, you will still see that really pretty stenciling underneath. I'm just using my weeding tool just to kind of peel those off and stick those down onto the vellum paper. And I do like that you get 3 different sizes with those little enamel dots. So I added those here as well. And then I decided to add a little bit of baker's twine to each of these. One in the pink and white and one in the green and white. And I also decided to finish off the inside of the card. So I'm going back to those rub-ons. And this one will be for the pink and turquoise card. So the front says warm wishes, and inside will say to you and yours. And then I thought I'd use some of these little starbursts in the turquoise color and kind of place those around the sentiment. I thought that would tie everything in nicely, bring a little bit of that turquoise color on the inside of the card. I'm just cutting out a few of those. Going back to that little ball tool, and then we'll just remove that film over the top. And then for the second card, I'm going to do the same thing. I'll just grab another sentiment. Like I said, there's plenty of choices on those transfers, so you have lots of options. So that finishes off the inside. I've been really focusing lately on trying to finish off the insides of my cards, because then I can just grab and go. I don't have to stop and find a sentiment and stamp it. I don't always do it, but I'm always happy when I have done it, so I could just reach in and grab a card and I'm ready to go. So let's finish this one off with a couple of those little red starbursts. And so this one will say Happy Holidays and a Happy New Year. So let's take a closer look at our finished cards. And there's that beautiful vellum overlay, and it just softens everything, gives such an elegant look. And then for this one, I added some lime green and white baker's twine. So I really hope you enjoyed today's cards. Keep an eye out for that snowflake set that I'm going to be doing very soon with vellum as well, just a little bit of a different technique. And if you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.